Welcome back everyone to Venlo Zoo, our city zoo project in the midst of Europe. In the last episode, we have actually built an old bear habitat, and this has been repurposed into a wonderful lar gibbon and small clawed otter habitat. In today's episode, we are going to look at a penguin, the African penguin habitat. So we are still going with the starter animals, but there is a very special story about this very habitat. I did actually lose some footage, and this is why we will jump right into the story behind. I wanted to give you a bit of a, slow time to get in, but I was a little bit too quick on deleting footage because I was running on, hard drive space was full, and so I needed to delete a couple of things. Now, this is a habitat that used to be here since the very beginning of the zoo. However, they have decided to keep the location for the African penguin because it is a good location. But, however, they needed to enlarge the habitat over time because, the requirements for animals just in general and also the conservation aspect has grown for the people and has been there to be met, and because of this they had to kind of change the habitat. And my attempt was to go in that we can still see part of the old way the habitat was built. You can also see these kind of blocks over here resembling a little bit of the old very small habitat, and the left hand side, the viewing, which is also receiving a little bit of an old path that is using, a couple of tricks to make it look a bit more used and overgrown. And also this typical statue. This is the little path I was just talking about. This is going to be exactly where usually the old viewing has been located, and from there on we are going to emerge into the new part. You'll be able to see that a lot better in the real-time part. Now, I also have to admit, I wanted to build even more in this episode, but there was something this week that I needed to address somehow, and where I have put a lot of effort into making the video. So if you have been living under a rock or behind the moon or wherever in the last couple days, you potentially have missed out on the fact that Planet Coaster 2 has officially been announced. And I guess 99% of you who have clicked on this very video have already seen that. Or maybe you're even here because you have clicked that one and you're like, hey, what is Planet Zoo looking like? Well, if you're interested in Planet Zoo, first of all, I highly recommend doing so, even though if you're not maybe a zoo person, do it in preparation of Planet Coaster 2, because these games are so similar and you can already enjoy the great new graphics and a way more stable and way more performant game. And also, if you use my instant gaming link in the description, you'll get some very good discounts on the game and you can just give it a try. Highly recommend it because it will make the transition into Planet Coaster 2 a lot more simple. However, I'm speaking about Planet Coaster 2 and Planet Zoo a little bit more in a next episode, so keep your eyes on the channel if you're interested. I think the most important information here is, and this is also I think the most relevant and in terms of transparency, the most important reason, I'm not gonna drop Zoo, okay? So for those of you who've been fearing that, because I received these questions so often in the last 24 hours, no. There is a difference to the situation with Planet Zoo versus Planet Coaster back then, simply because Planet Coaster was barely even playable for me anymore. All my projects were at a point where the performance was done and dusted. There was no real reason for me to continue anyways, and I would have needed to start over with a completely new one, which I didn't want to at that time. And here we are. We just started a brand new project in Zoo, which I'm clearly not gonna drop anytime soon, and also I have planned some one-offs in Zoo, and so don't worry. Anyways, let's get back into talking about this penguin habitat. One last little anecdote or little fun story. I did re-record the voiceovers of Venlo Zoo, I think 4 or 5 times, because I accidentally spoiled something about Planet Coaster 2, which was obviously not my intention and wasn't even allowed, so I had to re-record that, and this was a bit of a painful time. The last 8-ish weeks I already knew about Planet Coaster 2. That was pretty interesting to keep, keep safe and keep sealed while doing all these talks about potential new games and stuff like that. But yeah, so I want to specifically talk in this video about the new part of the habitat, which is just about to start right now. You'll see it's going to take up a good 2/3 of the time lapse today, which is down to the fact that I obviously had a bit of a lost footage, and the planning and backstage area of this habitat went into the void of being deleted from my hard drive. But I wanted to play around a little bit with something that we actually have seen in the trailer, in the announcement trailer of Planet Zoo. It's been very interesting because I've gathered together so many old trailers and stuff recently for my Planet Coaster 2 announcement videos, that I also looked at some of the announcement trailers of Planet Zoo, and I found these interesting stucco wall designs with the very plain, very modern white pieces, as you can see that I'm using over here. And this is one piece in the game that I felt like works super well with it, and I wanted to have this contrast specifically over here with like this old school left hand side where all the old kind of heavy stones have been used, and typically all these very old aquatic habitats you see in city zoos specifically, they are also super dark because they have over time like weathered so heavily that there is like there's like so much algae and stuff that went over the rocks and dark rocks and being wet the whole time, and moss on top of it in our region here obviously, that it makes a great contrast with these bright colors. And this is why I went for the white stucco design with a lot of hedges and stuff. A lot more easy to maintain, not that much more easy to clean up though, but whatever. Oh, actually, there is a bit of backstage work in here, so at least you can see the backstage, how it's interconnected. But I'm gonna guide you through it a bit more in the real-time part. So if you're interested for that one, I'm gonna talk you through there. But let's focus on the architecture. I didn't specifically have a example like I had in the last episode, so it's not based on one particular habitat. But the old part specifically is based on a lot of very typical zoo aquatic areas, like for example, like for seals or smaller penguins, you see that normally. And if you look at, for example, the Krefelder Zoo, that's a smaller zoo very close to where I'm living, they have a very poor old seal habitat still, or sea lion actually, I'm not sure if it's seals or sea lions, which is exactly one of these very typical old ones, and I really hope that they are going to receive a new one soon. But what they do have is a pretty damn new African penguin, almost sanctuary, I want to call that, because it's like a very open, spacious area where you can go through, and they have like a very nice water swimble area and some very cool bushes to hide in, and you know, it's very nicely done. And it's a very cool contrast between those two habitats. But I wanted to have this inside of one habitat, and this is why I decided to go for this very modern-esque design. What also comes with this is that, you know, you have to expand a habitat into a certain direction, and usually there is something in this area that has been there in the past. And I'm gonna do this in the next episode, that we will see some reminders of the old habitat that used to be in this very location. I'm pretty excited to bring this to you because I feel like these are the little details I may have missed in some of the earlier projects I had. Not intentionally though, I didn't focus on that because it's very hard to focus on everything in every series, you know what I mean? You have to kind of get yourself a storyline nailed down to follow, and Zoo Sicily, for example, was really focused on translating the Mediterranean vibe and focusing a lot more on, you know, making sure that the nature is spot on. Everything about this is nice. Yosemite Valley obviously was this promise of a huge zoo in Yosemite Valley, and making everything scale and the nature around, making the context of Northern American Park, making this correct, which worked out pretty well, I think. And this park over here is going to be a very story-driven, typical city zoo. And speaking of course, there are a lot more members now on the channel, so big thanks to all of you who joined. You'll find yourself on in some of these areas, so stick with me till the real-time part, because you'll be finding your names there. I'm gonna show you there. It's gonna be, I really like this. It's a very fun thing to have in every episode. I'm also always waiting till the recording, until I put in the names to give you guys the time to become a member of the channel. In case you don't know what exactly that means, for only 99 cents you can become a member of the channel. You receive the access to certain emotes and so on, which to be honest you can use, you don't need to use, you have access to them, it's fine. But you know, it just basically you support me, and there is no difference between the tiers, so you don't need to do anything else than buying the lowest one. You can obviously, if you want to support me more, buy a higher one, but it doesn't give you any more benefits, to be fully transparent. But you will be put into this game, into our founder stones or founder areas, so your name will be in here. And also you'll get access to a members only chat on Discord, where I eventually put some screenshots in. I will always put all the screenshots that I'm using for thumbnail making, so you see all the angles that I've been playing around with to make good thumbnails. And I will also give you some work in progress shots eventually. This week I was a bad person because I was actually too frightened to share anything, to not spoil anything. I don't know, it doesn't make any sense, a screenshot wouldn't have spoiled anything, but yeah, I was frightened, okay? I was scared to death to leak anything or so, because Frontier and leaks haven't been the best pairing in the last couple of years, so I didn't want to be the person who accidentally does something like that. So that is basically why I'm always a bit more careful in these weeks of these huge announcements. But anyways, you can see already I'm placing some of the latest details here, putting down certain things, and I'm gonna prepare, and this is where we can make a good segue before we go into the real-time part. I'm very happy with how the penguin habitat turns out, but more about that in the real-time part. This over here is preparing our desert house, and I'm not entirely sure if I get this done. I will try to focus on making the desert house thing for next week's episode, even though I am not entirely sure if I will be able to nail it down, because maybe I'm gonna do something else. I'm not entirely sure. I have some ideas in mind, and the desert house doesn't need too much care as of now. I'm not sure if I would get it done anyways already as a whole, but I simply want to continue this very story-driven approach, and I have 2 or 3 stories in my head to go for the next episode. I don't want to say too much, but I feel like I have to go inside of the desert house for the next episode. And this is just laying the foundation of how it could look and where we are going to go. Once I was in a very good flow, I thought I may actually get a little habitat done for today's episode, but I should also try to lower the expectation a little bit. It's not possible to do, 2 or 3 species per episode per week. That would be a little bit too much. And also, I've got upcoming holidays. So the first 2 weeks of August, actually, I'll be gone for holidays. And frankly, I think this time it's going to be very ambitious to pre-record something. So maybe there's going to be a little bit of a gap in between. I don't know yet. I don't know if I'm going to carry my computer with me. I don't really have good internet where we will be going, so I really don't know. It's just maybe I do, maybe I don't. It's a bit of a hassle at the moment with work and having a kid and all the other duties you have at home to get these things down. But maybe I'm able to do so. We'll see about this. But yeah, you can see nailing down a bit of the style here, how the indoor section should look like. And I'm very happy that people on the last episode commented that this reminded them of Burger Zoo in the Netherlands, because this is literally the biggest inspiration for this desert house anyways, and I'm gonna really base some of the things on this one. So yeah, good spot there, I want to say. But anyways, let's move over to the real-time part and have a look how it actually looks inside of the game, and where you will find your names if you have become a member. Alright, we're starting our little tour yet again in the entrance area, because I wanted to show you a little bit around. I did do some changes in here, we've got some drainages now and some little decals here and there to make just this area look better. Last episode I talked about the fact that I changed some of the brick textures. You can see that now in action. Nothing in particular crazy, so this is why we're going to move on now towards this whole new area. So we're going to go around here. Oh, by the way, maybe something you haven't seen. Look at that. I changed this entrance area. We now have a little meeting point here for some education tours. We do also have some not vending machines, ATMs in here embedded into the wall. The information kiosk next to it, some balloons, and then there's a new wall down here that separates this area. And then once you go over here, you do have a little entrance to the backstage area. So just a tiny little thing over here. Oh, look at that. I need to get rid of this little, rock lurking out of this region. And then you can already tell I used a bit of nature over here. This will also receive a tiny little bit of an Easter egg. You can see I have hidden away the backstage quite nicely with some bamboo, just like zoos do. They love their bamboo, just to hide anything away, basically. It's really true. It's like really what zoos and also theme parks do. Look at the kids playing down here. Just really love that interaction in front of a habitat. Yeah, to the right hand side there is a new entrance to our desert house, basically the same style as on the other side, our airlock design. And then if you go here, this is exactly what I meant. This is the old viewing part, and what we will see, and this is part of the Easter egg, is going to be like a little bit of an old pathing that's going to go somewhere in here where they have done something. But yeah, so you have to imagine that this was the habitat. Like really, this is all what the habitat used to be. You can see there is the wall already broken up. There is another wall part, but that is already from almost the second stage. Like the first stage was really just that tiny space over here where you can see the curve, and then going further over here around that edge has been the habitat. But then they enlarged this 2 times, and now it's the habitat that it basically is. They even received like a little bit of a beach section down here in the back. But yeah, it's nothing like really special though. As these animals don't really require something too special. I feel like I really found a good balance between giving it a style, but then again don't do too much. Also having some significant foliage behind there and just making sure everything is licensing together. And they can also basically, you know, swim and dive, which this time around I wanted to ensure. In the other habitat I didn't really want it because, you know, the otters are more like a style reason to be in here rather than the show star or the star of the show. And yeah, so moving over, oh look at that, I really like that shot of someone filling in. That's so cool, filling in the water bucket right now for us. There's a little one diving. So yeah, the more you go over here, before we look at that, there's another entrance to the right hand side. Let's quickly jump in so we have that sorted out of the way. So yeah, this is what I've done to the inside. You can see this pathway over here gives the feeling across, and it really gets across what I wanted to achieve. There's some stone missing here, making sure that everything looks nice. And then yeah, if we turn around, you can see this is a pretty open space, and I will do something about this space as well. It's gonna be more of a little plaza here, I'm gonna say that already, because we need one definitely inside of the house, and this is going to be part of a bigger habitat here on the left hand side. I mean, left hand side depends on from where you're looking though. And then you can see the shop, which also gets like a little bit of a backstage access, which is pretty visible at this point, but it won't be so visible when it's done. I have some ideas how to hide that away. And yeah, going out of this one, you are greeted, and I think this is like a very good use of space, that we have exactly this viewing area in front of this airlock so that the congestion is also avoided a little bit, because otherwise this would be pretty like a pretty narrow area. So it just made sense that they opened this up towards this viewing opportunity where you can already see the animals diving, and you can see part of the habitat. There's also like this little connection piece where the old habitat used to be, and you can see there is like already or there's still a part of the foundation in the ground, so reminders of the old times, so to say. And then you've got a very nice first look from over here. You can get very close with the animals. Kids can actually go down and have a look, but if also the parents want to see, you can go around that corner, and there is even better of a viewing opportunity. Speaking of, there is also our founder, or in this time our donator stone, if you will, and we are going to welcome Aaron Miller, Pia, Zefkev, Leonard Kyle, Samantha Selman, and Planko. And I'm quite sure that Aaron Miller has already been member of the channel for a longer time and has been rejoining us now. And I do see this because the longer you're a member, your little icon you have next to your name is changing until you receive the golden camel. And this is going to be the sign that you have been subscribed for more than a year, which is odd. Are you okay? Are you okay, my friend? What is your problem? Do I need to loosen some of your pain? What's the deal? Okay, so yeah, it's pretty interesting. I'm gonna call this the hummingbird of our of our diveable area. But yeah, apart from the fact that this one is very magically floating in the water, this is the area down here. It's a little bit more clean than the others, as you can see. There's just like a little bit of a dirt on the ground, but not too crazy. No cracks in the ground as of now. No cracks in the sides. Just very new, like these planter types over here. Very modern stucco design. Nothing you know, old. You've got the stucco wall over here, very nicely brought together, and you can really tell that this is the new part assembled on here. And you can go down and have a very nice look of them diving around. They have a very spacious habitat, so we can even hope for some offspring eventually. And yeah, there are some seating opportunities up here. I'm actually not sure if it's going to stay this way, by the way. This is just like temporary, and we may actually jump out of this cam to give you a bit of a more free look at the habitat. So this is how it hugs into this area. Also, speaking of the backstage, I was talking about this. This is how it looks. Like, very simple, you know, nothing crazy or fancy. And as I said already in the last episode, it's going to be connected to this area, to the street at some point, because this is where they receive the goods and so on. But it just makes sense that from a, you know, logical standpoint, and you know what, we can actually do this right now, just so I have an idea. And just going to keep that on 100%. So just from a logical standpoint, the zoo would technically be able to expand a little bit to this side, you know, because it would make sense to have a little bit of an arm going into this region for several reasons. So you have a very good opportunity to put in another habitat just in this space over here, simply because it will be connected to the backstage area, and we could have a little hub of staff rooms and so on in the middle. But B, you could even have like this meandering down into another region, and then eventually have another side entrance here, which I feel like is a good idea to have. Like, maybe not here, maybe even further down. But I did want to have some side entrances, so I think this planning over here isn't the most stupid idea I've ever had. I think it's actually pretty clever. And then this area is eventually changing, but also not even changing, but just in general, I think making even more sense than it does already right now. So this is what I'm looking at for the future. But one thing I can definitely tell you is that it's not gonna be next episode. Because what I want to really finish off first is this entire desert house approach. And do not spoil too much, because I don't even know if it's going to be the next episode or not, as I've already said in the time-lapse. This central part over here is going to be one big habitat. You can now comment down below what you think, which type of animals will go in here, what this is going to be. But yeah, it's going to be one huge habitat connected to this one wonderful, well, desert house. And, you know, there's also obviously a side over here that is not filled in, and there's other stuff that needs to be done, and you know, there's a lot to do. But I'm looking at this right now with a big smile, because like, just seeing how this entire area came together, it just really translates the style that I wanted to achieve with this zoo. I feel like the pathing feels super organic and realistic as it stands right now. You have to obviously see that with the interior together. It's not like just what you see to the sides. It's very, very close to the building itself, but as we've talked about in the first episode, and sorry if I'm going to talk too much about this right now, but it's very important to get the story across. Like, we've talked about this in the first episode. This desert house is something they have built way, way later than the rest of the zoo. So you really have to look at these habitats as if they've been here already for a while, and then at some point they ripped apart something here in the center and put this very new desert house in. And this is why you need to maximize the space available, and hence it just makes sense that this is so close to other areas. And this is why they did little things like this, why opening up this little segment, getting closer to the habitat edges, is not only a design reason for making it look good, but it's also a design reason for giving the people space to move, actually. And the same goes over here, you know, we don't really have a very nice connection to both sides, but it does open up into wider areas to both sides, to the left and to the right. So again, a little bit of a trick to avoid congestion and making sure that realistically it kind of works this way. I also do love that little bit of contrast here between the path and then the more modern concrete over here, with all this moss and little stones in between. And then we've got this old statue, which also looks like as if it's been a lot more weathered. And then over here you have a bit more of a modern statue that is connected to the fake education thing. I hate that we can't change which animal and so on we have, so I just tried my best in just hiding that and assuming that this is something else to be doing. I could put like a custom billboard in there in the future, but you know, at the moment I don't think it's necessary. But yeah, just looking at this whole thing and flying through here, I do think this city zoo vibe, what I wanted to do, comes very nicely across, and I can't tell you guys how much I'm enjoying myself doing this. Again, there will be a bit of a special episode here and there, and I will continue growing the zoo. I am pretty sure that we are not going to fill this entire space because performance-wise, there's no way this is going to happen. But I feel like, filling in a good chunk of the central area and making sure that this is a lot more compact zoo will make it still look like a very fairly nice zoo. And maybe we are going to do something like a safari or so. I don't know, but just like there are a bajillion possibilities to do so. But for the moment, I am very, very happy with how this turns out so far. And now all I can say is a big, big thanks to every single one of you. Not only subscribing to the channel, but also becoming a member and being part of the series by just simply watching. The last couple weeks have been a blast on this channel. Now with the announcement of Planet Coaster 2, it's becoming even better. You can see the views went crazy these days. So yeah, everything that you do, guys, is very much appreciated because you put me in the position I am. And this is why I'm very grateful. And I do hope that I can give you something back with these episodes, trying to really go deep onto the story building and just giving you also a lot of tips and tricks and why I do certain things and what kind of thoughts are going behind, because I feel like this is what I can, give you, what I can bring to the table. So please let me know in the comments what you think of this episode, what you want to see in this zoo in the future, and feel free to leave some feedback on the channel. And if not, just like the video and be happy with it, hopefully. And again, if you want to find your name in here, you know how to do it by now. Become a member and you're good to go. Also, one last thing, and this is just making sure that you guys are aware of it. If you want to test out Planet Zoo, Planet Coaster, or any of the DLCs, check out my link in the description for Instant Gaming. They are super cheap at the moment. It's not only summer deals on Steam, but they also have some summer deals, especially of these wonderful games in there. It's crazy, actually. Sometimes you get like 10 DLCs for under 30 euros or something in like together or whatever. It's crazy. But yeah, so have a wonderful weekend, guys. Thank you so much for your ongoing support. And also, if you're a fan of Zoo Sicily, you may want to watch YouTube. Not on this place though, but just check out some other channels. Eventually you may or may not find Zoo Sicily. So I'll leave you with that. Have a wonderful time. Stay safe and goodbye.